welcome everyone here, our guests. Thank you for being over here, and thank you so much to our special guest, House Representative, Ms. Jennifer Pawlik. Thank you so much. We, Gayatri, Zoya, and me, are so grateful that you can be with us. A warm welcome and heartfelt thank you. So, today we are having an important conversation, which is much needed in any democracy, about voting and why do we vote. Voting is not just a privilege, but also a duty. And we are going for an introspection of why we vote so that we can discover the importance of voting. I know the presidential contest understandably grabs a lot of the media attention, but local elections have a huge impact on our daily lives, and therefore the topic, and therefore we have invited House Representative Ms. Pawlik to the show to reiterate the importance of local representatives and how their hard work translates to our everyday daily existence. Thank you, House Representative Ms. Jennifer Pawlik. She is the Arizona State Representative in Legislative District 17, serves on the House Judiciary, Education, Joint Legislative Audit Committees. She is an active member of the Democratic Caucus, and her priorities include education, healthcare, creation of jobs. So these are very, very important elements that we experience in our everyday life. House Representative Ms. Pawlik is on the 2020 November ballot for re-election. Best of luck. But first, I would like to congratulate you on your endorsement from President Obama and the 2020 Democratic Party's presidential candidate, Vice President Joe Biden. So we begin the conversation with you. We would love to hear from you. Why do you vote, and about your priorities in regards to our state, Arizona?
Me to join you today. I'm honored to be your guest. The reason I vote is because that is my opportunity to share my voice. I have daughters who are 22, and from the time they were tiny little babies, I always took them with me to the polling place because I wanted them to understand the importance of having a voice. And to this day, they are strong voters. So I think that it is important that not only we vote, but that we put upon our children the importance of voting, so that when they are of age, they know that this is something that they should do. Now, why I got involved in politics, I'm a teacher. I taught kindergarten through sixth grade for 17 years. And back in 2014, my school won the National Blue Ribbon Award, which is such a high honor. There are only 5 schools in the state of Arizona to receive this honor each year. The same year we received the honor, we were actually having a cut in pay. And the reason for that was there was a lawsuit about the bonus structure that we used in our district. So our pay was actually going down. And we had a number of teachers that year who broke their contracts mid-year, and they left the field of education. So it wasn't about not loving teaching anymore. It wasn't about not loving the children. It was about they couldn't afford it any longer. Those of us who stayed behind were working multiple jobs to pay the bills. And at the time, I was working 3 jobs. And it wasn't to be fancy. It wasn't to take trips and have a new car. It was just to get by. At that time, at the legislature, there was a powerful lawmaker who joked that teachers were working multiple jobs because they wanted to have a boat. And I took such offense to that. In the lunchroom, the teachers would join together for the meal, and we would complain and complain and complain. Suddenly, I had this thought one day that the complaining is not making anything better, that if I wasn't willing to be the one to step forward and try to make a change, that I needed to be quiet. So it was at that point that I got involved with the local Democratic Party here in Chandler, and I did training to learn how to be a candidate so that my voice could be amplified, so that I can be the voice for teachers and for Arizona students at the Capitol as someone who's walked in the shoes of a teacher. So that is why I vote, and why I vote to represent my community at the Capitol. As for my vision, my passion is education. And the more I learn, even stepping out of the classroom, the more I see how much work there is to be done. And honestly, I feel like it starts with preschool. Those of us who have the means find a way to provide preschool for our children. But there are some people who can't afford to do that, or they don't have access to a quality preschool in their neighborhoods. And I believe it all starts there. And then we need to make sure that we're properly funding our kindergarten through 12 schools as well. Our class sizes are very, very high when you look at the rates across the nation. Our per pupil funding is near the bottom. We see sometimes that our buildings are not maintained. A couple of years ago, there was a school in Glendale where the roof fell down after a big storm. So we shouldn't worry about the safety of our teachers and our students in our school buildings. With COVID-19, we've really seen the difference between those who have access to technology and those who do not. So even within our city in Chandler, there are some communities who don't have access to technology. They don't have access to the internet. And currently that's impacting how they are getting their education, which is really, really a shame. At the college level, the state does not support the community colleges with any funding. The colleges are paid for with property taxes and tuition. And I would venture to guess that most students who are university students would say that our universities are not as free as possible as the Constitution says they must be. So just in the realm of education alone, there's so much work to do. And I am honored to have the opportunity to start working on those things. I look forward to your questions tonight.
Thank you so much, Representative Pawlik. That is truly admirable, honestly. Like, you're not just giving voice to the issues that are important, but you're setting it in motion. So I really, really appreciate that as a whole. We do have a panel set up here for you. We're going to start with Deepa. Thank you so much for joining us, Deepa. I believe you have a question. And the first thing I would like you to start with is, why do you vote?
I wanted to start by thanking all of you for giving me this opportunity to come here. And then House Representative Pawlik, thank you so much for making the time and for what you're doing. I think being a voice for teachers is so important, and everything else that you're doing makes a big difference to us, especially when the Red for Ed movement was going on. And so your support meant a lot to teachers and our students as well, because it directly translates to the next generation. So I appreciate it, and thank you so much for that. I want to start by saying why I vote. And what makes it an important job for me to do as a citizen of this country. I've never really voted when I grew up in India, because we moved away when the voting age was appropriate for us to be able to vote. And then we had to wait for a couple of years until we became a naturalized citizen. And so that didn't happen until 2003. So I was already well into my 30s. So I had to wait till my 30s to exercise my voice. And I do believe that voting comes with a great privilege. I mean, one of the essential duties, civic duties of a citizen is to be able to voice their opinion. And, you know, that is honoring the legacy of those who've given up so much to give us this right. So people have sacrificed their lives, they have sacrificed their time with their families, and organized demonstrations and protests, and brought attention to the fact that everybody needs to have these voting rights. And so by not voting, I'm not going to honor that legacy that they have left us. And so I think that is a huge disservice, and that's kind of trampling over all the sacrifices they've done. So that's important to me. And the last part I do feel very strongly about is apathy and indifference is the worst thing that we could give to the world right now. And by not voting, we are bringing that apathy and indifference to the world. And I think that's something that, there's a quote saying that the opposite of love is not really hate, it's indifference. Mm-hmm. Indifference that leads to genocides, indifference that leads to, people being tortured, people being killed. And so I think we want to make sure that we are not raising a generation of apathetic and indifferent individuals. And so that starts with me. So those are my reasons for why I think voting is so important. So my question, Representative Pawlik, is in this age, in this time right now, the most important thing that is that I feel is unity, is the divisiveness that is happening. So my question to you is, what are some of your ideas or strategies or policies to help bring that division, to bring about that unity among the differences that we are all experiencing? And how do we get people to have dialogues without having it as it hurting their intelligence or their race or their gender, but really actually trying to make sure you get people of differing opinions together having a civil debate without it being a referendum on who they are or what they stand for?
I think what's most critical is that as leaders, whether it's me as an elected official or you as educators, that we model the behavior that we hope to see. So for example, at the Capitol, I meet with individuals and I meet with groups who are advocating for different causes. I may not agree with their position, but my job is to open my door and listen to what they have to say. And what I've heard from a lot of people is that there are some lawmakers who don't do that. And quite frankly, I was shocked, because I thought my job as a leader is to listen and get feedback from everyone, find out how that impacts my community, and then make decisions that way. So I would say for myself that I really try to be the leader that shows the right way to do that, where I'm not making statements that people find offensive. I'm trying to listen and be thoughtful in my words, be respectful in my words. And I would encourage other leaders, no matter what their field is, to do the same. No, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. That is wonderful. It is important to set up, a role model, a standard before you do go out in the community. I think next we have Preeti. Preeti, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll give it to you from here.
Let me take this opportunity to thank you all, and Representative Ms. Pawlik, thank you for your time, and thank you, the panel, for giving me this platform to ask my question to you. Again, my vote, I have been, like all here, I'm a naturalized citizen of this country, and it's an honor and privilege to be exercising these rights. But it is very important, I think, this year, because in all these 22 years of my living here, I've never seen more polarized and our nation more divided. And it makes it really, really important this year to voice my opinion. And so my question for you is, if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed, we know she is looking to repeal the Affordable Care Act as well as the common rights in healthcare. What would you do at the state level to ensure that Arizona still keeping some of these rights and the healthcare?
This may be one of the most important reasons to vote. Right now in the Arizona House of Representatives, we have 29 Democrats and 31 Republicans. So what I found during my first term is most of the bills that we vote on, we all agree, or we mostly agree. However, with the controversial bills, we don't have enough votes to stop them. And if there's an issue that we feel very important, we don't have enough votes to pass the bill. So on this issue in particular, if this is critical to you or any of the viewers watching this show, it's absolutely critical that you vote for Democrats. We want to preserve the Affordable Care Act. We want to protect the parts that are good, like pre-existing conditions are covered.
Absolutely.
As a mom of 22-year-old girls, I really like the fact that they're still on my health insurance.
True.
And we want to protect those parts, and we want to fix what's not right, because we know it's not a perfect plan. I certainly won't speak for my opponents, but I would encourage voters who live in my district to look up the Clean Elections debate, and you can hear what they have to say about this very issue and make a decision on your own.
Thank you.
You're
I think
welcome.
the next one up is Alpana. Alpana, thank you so much for joining us today. I believe you do have a question for Representative Pawlik.
For taking the time today on a Sunday afternoon. Can hear?
Yeah, louder.
You're good.
Well, thanks everybody for being here on a Sunday afternoon. Well, as everybody knows, we are all here from India. I came here as a green card holder, became a citizen a few years later. So, like Deepa said, I did not exercise voting rights till I was probably in my 30s. So I don't take that for granted. It is a privilege. And it's a form of self-expression, way to make your opinion count. So, and it's also a way to, stand up for what you believe in. So this year, more than ever, I think it's really important that you go out and vote. So having said that, my question to you, House Representative Pawlik, is that we are in the healthcare industry. I work for a home health hospice company. My husband is a primary care doctor. We are seeing how this pandemic is really affecting us at a very, we are frontline workers basically. So I see a lot of uninsured in the hospitals. What measures do you have in place for, all these bills that these people have to pay? There's going to be a housing crisis that's also going to be coming with people not paying rent, mortgages, and everything. What kind of measures do you have in place for all these things that are coming down the pike? And the stock market seems to be booming right now, but it seems like just a fake bubble that we are in, and it's scary at this point. So that was my concern.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that you're doing to help the health of the community. This is very concerning, and in March, before we closed due to COVID-19, when we were working on the budget bills, the Democratic caucus did bring a number of amendments to the table where we were looking at different things like increasing the unemployment insurance. Right now, Arizona's unemployment insurance is $240 per week, and it's almost the lowest in the country. I believe it's number 48 or 49. And I would think that most families would find it very difficult to pay their bills on $240 per week. We were looking to increase that to the national average, which would be more around $600 a week. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we didn't have the votes to get it any farther than putting the idea out there. We also were very concerned about evictions, and we wanted to have something in place for eviction protection. And again, that was shut down immediately. There was an executive order that the governor put out, and that is a moratorium on residential evictions, and that is current through October 31st. So what I would encourage people to do, if this is a passion area of yours, is I would encourage you to reach out to the governor's office to ask him to continue that executive order so that people can be protected from losing their homes. It's critical that we are taking care of people. And in March, when we left, we did give the governor in 2 separate bills $105 million, and that was to help people with these very issues that you're talking about. I believe there's about $30 million left in the governor's fund that he can still use for these programs. So there is CARES Act money available to the governor, and it is his discretion where he's spending it. So some of that money has been distributed to the cities. Some of that money he has distributed to programs that work with the homeless, and there has been money that have gone into different healthcare programs. So know that that is available. But right now, because the legislature is not in session, it is the governor's decision when and if that money is spent. So I would encourage you to reach out to his office to share your area of expertise and to provide an opinion of where that money should go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for that question.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, everybody, and you especially, and for everything that you're doing. The question why I vote is I actually grew up in a kingdom where we did not have the right to vote, where you're not even informed, like you find out the decisions that are being made for you as a citizen, as a human being. So honestly, I believe that, first of all, I take it as a privilege. Like Deepa said, it definitely is a privilege. And as a whole, I believe it's a key to any kind of transformation for a country. Not everybody has that privilege. So I believe that I can be a voice for those people in my community as a whole. And, you also, being informed, I get to choose how my tax dollars are being used, and it's going to the funding for social work and healthcare. My question is along the same lines. It also seems like Arizona keeps falling short when it comes to mental illness. And the bill for mental health, especially for schools, does not seem to advance. Within the current pandemic, I know we're navigating our way through online schooling, different modules. How close are we to finding some kind of mental health parity with insurance where social workers and counselors and psychologists can be reimbursed for those services, and it's just not falling back on school funding?
I actually have some good news for you.
Okay.
In my first term, I worked very closely with Senator Sean Bowie, who represents District 18, which is Ahwatukee, West Chandler, and Tempe. And we did a series of different bills having to do with mental health. My first year in the legislature, we had a bill that would put more school counselors and school social workers in the schools, which is wonderful because our ratio in Arizona is 926 students to 1 counselor, which we know is not even close to enough. The national average is 250 to 1. So what was very interesting, and as a new legislator, I did not know this is the way it worked. We offered the bills, and as Democrats, our bills were not heard. However, it was a priority of the governor. So he had what he called his school safety plan, that year in 2019, and it was actually part of the budget that year. And what he did was, normally schools could apply for a grant to have a school resource officer in their schools. It was typically high schools, some junior highs qualified. But this plan opened it up where schools had the option of choosing a school counselor, a school social worker, or a school resource officer. So that's wonderful.
That is
However,
wonderful.
it was grant-based, so there was only so much money. More schools applied than we had money. So to your point, we need more money for these services, but at least there's a program in there. We can start with that.
There's a movement.
Now, last year, I had a bill that, in my mind as a teacher, part of the situation is, if we want to have school social workers and school counselors, we have to have enough people trained to step into those jobs. So an idea that I had was to expand the Teachers Academy to include people in those fields. For every year that they would agree to work in Arizona, 1 year of their college tuition is covered. The bill did not receive a hearing, but that's something that I'm going to push again because it is so important. I want you to know also that as far as the steps go and where you can get involved when we reconvene in January, we propose a bill. The bill gets a bill number. And once it receives a bill number, then it's public. You can see it and you can provide feedback. If we are so lucky, the bill will get assigned to a committee. And when it goes to committee, we ask for public testimony. You can do one of two things. You can either go to the committee meeting and step up to the microphone and give your opinion on the bill, or you can participate in a program called Request to Speak. It's an online platform where you can type out a short message in support or opposition of a bill. So I would say in January, when these bills come forth again, have your voice be heard. Share this with the communities you belong to so more voices are coming to the table so that those who are in power can see the importance of this in our community. I hope that helps.
It does.
It's
very helpful.
area.
I know. I can see the excitement. Thank you so much. No, that's definitely helpful. It does help. I think we have Seema up next. Thank you, Seema, for being here.
Thank you, Nada. Thank you, House Representative Pawlik and all our friends for being here. We really appreciate your time. Why I vote? I vote because I think voting is empowering. It is my opportunity to be heard. It is my chance to take that one step closer to the change that I see, not only for myself, my family, my community, but for the generations to follow. You know, it's a right that has been given to me as a citizen of a democracy. I would not forego this right. In fact, I think voting is a duty as a responsible citizen of a democracy. And that is why I think it is very necessary to vote. That's the only way I could have my voice heard and make a change. You know, sometimes we feel that one vote does not make a difference, but it's every drop adds up. So I think voting is really important. And my question, Representative Pawlik, is kind of piggybacking off of what Zoya already asked and what you have addressed, and we really appreciate all the efforts that have been put into this very urgent issue of mental health. This is something, and I have been an educator for the last 28 years in several different roles. And in my opinion, the issue of mental health is not only one of the most urgent needs we need to focus on, but unfortunately, one of the most neglected areas too. And my question to you is, in your opinion, do you think there is a need to make certain modifications, revisions to school curriculum now that the students have been suddenly thrown into this scary, uncertain pandemic world, and overnight things have changed for us as adults and more so for students? Thank you.
I think it's very likely that something needs to change. Do know that curriculum happens at the local level, so that's not something that the legislature would do, but that is something where you should be informed of what your local school boards are doing. And I would say stream their meetings, ask questions of the people who are serving on your school boards. And just like when we have our committee meetings, all of the school boards have open comment time where you can provide written or oral comments to share your thoughts on the issue. And I think that the school boards really need to hear from you, especially on this issue. This is one area where, unfortunately, in Chandler, we're very divided. And I struggle to understand why we're divided on this issue, because we're talking about the well-being of our students. There are some people who feel like this is the job of the parents rather than the job of the school. And they have been very vocal at the school board meetings. So I would encourage you to have your voice heard, to show that there are two sides to that issue. And it's just one more chance. It goes beyond voting. It is scary to get up to that podium. The first time I did it, my voice shook so hard. I almost wasn't comprehensible. But I would say definitely be involved at the local level and have your voice be heard so that they know how critical the issue is.
Thank you, Representative Pawlik, for that direction. Thank you so much. So next one is Gayatri, my co-host. So I'll give it to her from here.
All right. Thank you for being here, and thank you to all of you for taking the time. So why I vote? Like all of the girls today on the panel, I also grew up in India, which is a democratic country. And I immigrated to the US when I was 27. But as a young adult growing up in India, I never really understood the root cause of the lawlessness and the corruption that is pervasive, I feel, in all aspects of the Indian society and the public infrastructure. I just went about my life accepting the corruption, accepting the abuse of power by the cops, accepting the abuse of women's rights. We just accepted that the system was not meant to work for us, only for the rich and powerful. And I never voted. I had no faith in the elections process. But one time, one of the local political candidates drove up to our street and he struck a conversation with my dad. And he made a very interesting comment to my dad. He said, I don't really care about what you want. You don't vote for me. People who vote for me are the ones who are living in the slums and the poor housing colonies that were around our area. And that is my vote bank. That is who I pander to. He was actually on his way to deliver some blankets and other goodies to those communities so they would vote for him. That response made me realize that my being jaded with this whole system and not participating in it had made the problem worse. And I was part of the problem. And it also meant that the poor people who were voting for this guy had no idea what and who they were voting for. They were literally like pawns in the political endgame. Mm-hmm. So when I came to America and we finally got our citizenship in 2015, I knew I had to be part of the solution and not the problem. Mm. And so I vote, and not just the presidential elections. I vote in my HOA board elections. I vote for all our local elections. I'm in every opportunity that I can get to make my voice heard and affect change. And for me, I think voting matters because voting impacts not just you, but all your loved ones. I mean, your kids' educations, your parents' options to healthcare, your pets' access to parks and recreational areas, and your home prices, your property taxes, everything. So I vote because I don't want to stand by and let other people decide the fate of my family and myself. And I don't want to be part of a banana republic. So I want to have a healthy democracy and I want to vote for that reason. But in this election, as in all elections, education is a very important issue for me. So my question to House Representative Ms. Pawlik is about funding. When I talk to the teachers in Arizona, a lot of them mention the problem in education is not so much lack of funding, but mismanagement of funding. So how will you ensure that the funds that are allocated for solutions are actually delivering real improvements for our kids and the educational system?
Thank you. I would say your first part about why you vote. Oh my goodness, you should make a commercial. That was so inspiring. Thank you.
That's a true story.
That's wonderful. So with the accountability, what I want you all to know is that all schools in Arizona are audited each year. All public schools are audited. And if you'd like to look up the audit, you can find them at the arizonaauditor.gov website. You can search by school district. You can compare one school district to the other. You can see how much money is spent in the classroom, how much is spent on administration, how much is spent in the cafeteria. So she produces these wonderful reports each year. Now in Arizona, the charter system is a public system. It's publicly funded. However, the charter schools are considered businesses once they receive their money, and they play by different rules. The charter schools are also audited, but it's using a different methodology. So we can't compare the audit of the public schools, the district schools to the charter schools because we're looking at different numbers. They report things differently. What I would say is when we look oftentimes at the news and we see where there's been an issue with funding and waste of money, oftentimes it is in the charter systems. They follow different rules regarding procurement and also in governance. They can have dealings with family members. They can cut large checks for those who run the schools. I think that it's absolutely critical that we look at some reforms in the charter school realm so that we make sure that they are also held accountable and that their finances are transparent. Because as taxpayers, I think we should be ensured that the money we put toward the schools is not being wasted. To your point, it's absolutely critical that the money is going into the classrooms. I hope that helps, and I hope that gives you a couple of different websites to check out. For the charter schools, it's asbcs.az.gov, and that's the Arizona Charter Board. It's their website, and you can find the audits there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for that information and the website and the clarification on the topic. That helped a lot. We have Neeta here. Thank you, Neeta, for joining us, and I'll give it to you from here.
Thank you so much, House Representative Ms. Pawlik, for joining us today, and thank you for this wonderful panel for giving me an opportunity to present my questions and concerns to the House Representative. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. So my why I vote is that voting gives me a voice to make an informed decision. And I don't want anybody else to take that decision on my behalf. And my story is exactly the same. 2003, I got naturalized. And yeah, so I have been, it's been a privilege to exercise my voting rights. And I believe that in order to make a positive impact, I have to vote. And that's what I've been encouraging both my girls and my older one. She is all set to vote. She is excited. And it also gives me, voting also gives me the power to know where my hard-earned tax money is going to. So now I'll go to my question. My question to you will be like in recent years, we have seen, especially, and I'll only speak about my school district where I work for, Chandler Unified. We have seen a huge dip in not only recruitment of the highly qualified teachers, but also the problem in retaining those highly qualified teachers. So my question to you would be, how are you willing to help my school district to not only recruit, but to also retain those highly qualified educators? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. It's absolutely concerning because I'll tell you, the new teachers often don't make it 5 years. One thing that I did want to point out, and I don't know if this group finds it controversial or not, but we do have Proposition 208 that is on the ballot. And if that passes, there are 5 buckets of money that could address the very issue you're talking about. So 50% of the money that comes in with that proposition will go to increasing teacher salaries. 25% of the money will go to paraprofessionals. So that's the classroom aides. It could be to the cafeteria workers, the bus drivers, the custodians. There will be money for the CTE programs, which is the career and technical education. They're the vocational ed programs that you typically see in high school. There will be money set aside for mentoring and recruiting new teachers. And then there will be money set aside for increasing the scholarships available through the Teachers Academy. So I'm really hopeful that that proposition can pass because I think it would impact our education system so much. In my experience, teachers didn't leave because they hated it. They left because the stress level was so high and they felt like they weren't being properly compensated for the job that they were doing. So I feel very strongly that if teachers are paid a livable wage, they'll stay.
I know.
And you don't know how much it would just make me happy if I could go back into the classroom and teach again. So that's one piece, is Proposition 208. As far as retaining teachers, it is critical when teachers are new that they have a mentor, somebody who has time to mentor them properly, someone who has time to teach them the ropes and to tell them this is okay. We need smaller class sizes. There was one year when I was teaching 2nd grade, a friend of mine was teaching in New York, and we decided to do pen pals. So we compiled the list of students in our class, and I sent my list to her, and she called me up and she said, "Jennifer, your class is twice the size of mine." And how is that okay? That in 2nd grade here in Chandler, I had 32 students, and in New York, she had 16. We're good. Teachers give and give and give and give. They do their best. But if you have a class of 16 or a class of 32, the students are going to have a different education. So we need to look at class size, and we need to support the teachers. And I think that comes from government. It comes from all over. We need to show respect to our teachers. They are impacting the next generation. Their job is so important. They should be respected, lauded, loved. And I think that that would go such a long way in retaining teachers. The recruiting part, I think, is tricky. There are some CTE programs in some high schools. Castile High School is one of them that has a program in high school where they're trying to get high school students interested in becoming teachers. We need to expand programs like that. We need to make sure that if finances are the problem that's stopping someone from going to college, that we offer them the scholarship. And then when they're in those teacher preparation programs, we need to do whatever we can to support them. I'm so lucky to teach in a program like that. And I look into the eyes of my students if I can see they're so stressed out. And I talk to them and I say, are you okay? How can we get through this? Because they need to have mentors, even as students, so that they can continue their program and continue on. So I would implore any of you in education to do whatever you can to support young teachers if you have any bandwidth left at the end of your day.
So, I would like to add one thing that I'm sure that you'll be very glad to know what you mentioned about mentoring the new teachers. I work very closely in the district with Dr. Saludik, Deputy Director, and last year we did put in motion a program to help new incoming teachers, which I was put in charge of also mentoring. And yes, so I just wanted to let you know that that program is in motion. And then unfortunately the COVID hit. So you will definitely hear more about this program and we'll definitely keep in touch. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Oh, you are welcome. Please let me know how that's going.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, honestly, I cannot thank you enough for all the information. I can truly see the passion that, you know, that you really do enjoy what you're doing. And thank you for everything that you're doing.
You're welcome.
I think, Roops, you are next with your question and why you vote.
All right.
Actually, before I gave it to Roops, I really wanted to thank you for the breakdown of the funding and explanation on Prop 208. That really
you're
was
welcome.
helpful. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I know.
I'm
know.
so
Thank
sorry,
you.
Roops.
It's okay. You don't have to be sorry. We are having a conversation, which is so
Yes.
very enriching. And thank you. Thank you so much, House Representative Jennifer Pawlik, for sharing your thoughts and also educating us. Voting is a very, very, has a deep meaning for me because I was born in a democratic country where I learned the aspect of voting. But there are some dysfunctionality that we face in India, and there is a certain acceptance of it. Therefore, I have seen how democracy can also not function properly. Then I migrated to this country, and here now I vote in United States of America. And US is a country which is a role model for a democratic way of government to the whole world. And therefore we see America the way it functions from very far away, and we feel like participating in that American dream. And as we see ladies' aspiration, that really makes me all the time emotional. Send me the tired and the homeless. I left my lamp beside that golden door. This is an aspiration of this country, to give opportunities to everyone to achieve that American dream. And I'm not talking about socialism here at all. I'm not. Because as you achieve that American dream, you pay taxes to the government, and the government benefits. And therefore, I vote to sustain that aspiration of that American soul, which is, I am seeing in the last 4 years, eroding, and I'm scared. And I actually vote because I want to keep that idea intact. Fair elections, freedom of speech, transparency within the government, trust for the government. And most importantly, I think voting is more than a right, because I personally think it is immoral not to vote when thousands across this world have died fighting for that same right, you know. And thousands of humans today in the 21st century do not have the opportunity to vote. So I feel very lucky that I can vote. I vote because I can, and I vote because I should. you know. It's a responsibility, and I have never, ever, ever missed an opportunity to vote in this country. I've always voted, you know. So my question to you is in regards to the community colleges. I teach at a community college, and my question is that my students graduating from the local community colleges and getting a job with the local Fortune 100 companies like the Intels, the Honeywells, and we know that TCMC will be building their fab in the valley. So huge job opportunities there. So what are your plans about that prospect? Because we know corporate America outsources jobs at a random manner, and aren't shouldn't we expect a certain patriotism from corporate America to keep the jobs over here in America, within America?
I agree with you. And I'll tell you, as a mom, I want my daughters to be able to find a job in Arizona so they're still close to me. So, yes, I absolutely hear what you're saying. And I would encourage the corporations to be working with our school systems, whether it's universities, the community colleges, or the high school districts. And by working together, we can ensure that our students are ready for the jobs that they need to hire for. We are so lucky here in Chandler because we have so many high-tech companies right here in our community, and they do need people to work there. So I think one thing that we've got to do is encourage the collaboration between the schools and the companies. Now, one thing that happened this year that still to reflect, it's hard to believe this even happened. We had a bill to continue a research and development tax credit. And it had already been going on for 10 years. It was due to expire. So it was a Republican bill, and it was looking to expand the program for another 15 years. They didn't have the votes. It was very interesting because at the time, the Democrats were off because 15 years was too long. And the very conservative Republicans were also off the bill. So they had maybe 20-something votes. So I was asked to run an amendment to the bill that instead of allowing it to continue for 15 years, it would continue for 10. So I ran that amendment, and what I learned was the impact that that program had had here in Chandler over the last 10 years. It was stunning. It had grown jobs in Chandler by 14,000 new jobs in 10 years in Chandler. And then the part that really just boggled my mind, capital improvements in this district, $8 billion with a B. So that is one way that we can help, is by providing a tax credit that allows the companies to stay here, to build their plants, to offer new jobs in our community. And those are high-paying jobs.
Yes.
So I'm just thrilled that I had the opportunity to do that, and I can only imagine what the impact will be in the next decade.
I hope so.
Wow.
Yes.
We're looking
That's
forward to it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
All right. So I think we are done with everybody's questions. So I want to thank all of you for joining the Guilty Pleasure team today for this really important discussion. And a big thank you to House Representative Ms. Pawlik for gracing us and answering all our questions. Thank you. So in closing thoughts, when we thought of doing this show today, we were mindful of the fact that we are living in extremely partisan times. And therefore, the focus of this show today was not to play upon our divisions, but unite and agree on one common purpose, and that was the importance of voting. Why do we vote? Did you know that the word democracy actually means rule of the people? I did not know it.
Yeah,
so
rule of the people.
I'm telling you now, yes, democracy means rule of the people.
Mhm.
The word demos is from Greek, which means people. So, as we all know, voting rights are inherent to any democratic process. But like I have been talking about my stories and some of us are learning, not all democracies are alike. There are several so-called democratic nations that are far from healthy democracies. I would say they are fake democracies.
Fake.
For example, India, Pakistan, Russia, and there are many more actually. These countries are not real democracies because there are certain principles that apply to democracies, and these countries and their laws do not support them. So earlier I had mentioned I vote because I want to be part of a healthy democracy and not a banana republic. I wanted to take some time today and remind us all about the modern principles of a healthy democracy. And I actually read these in an Australian conservation research fund paper. And I thought they were very, very meaningful and they resonated with me. And idealistically, I'm hoping that we are all keeping these in mind as we choose the candidates that we vote for.
Exactly.
So I'm going to read these, and there are 10 of these, so bear with me. So principles of a healthy democracy. Number 1, power resides with the people. Number 2, decisions are made for the long-term interest and common good of the people and the planet. The planet. I mean, this one really struck with me. As you will remember, even the Pope acknowledged this year, we have sinned against the planet for the last 200 years. And in a modern democracy, we should have our elected officials making decisions that support a healthy planet and a healthy environment.
Exactly.
So digressing, moving on to number 3, money and power do not have undue influence over policy and politics. Number 4,
Policies, politics.
citizens trust their elected representatives, democratic processes, and institutions. Number 5, voting franchise is inclusive of all members of society. Number 6, fundamental human rights are recognized and protected. Number 7, two-way flow of meaningful information between civil society and the government representative so both sectors can make informed decisions. Number 8, decisions and decision-making is transparent and accountable. Number 9, decision makers need to reflect that diversity of the community. And lastly, number 10, rule of law is impartially applied and enforced by an independent judiciary.
Wow.
So these are the
That's
10
so
rules.
insightful.
Yes, these are the 10 rules of a modern, healthy democracy. Now, the only way to preserve these principles is through voting, and voting for the candidates that support these principles. And I can tell you, as an immigrant, these principles, barring a few, are largely supported in the United States. But that could change if we don't show up and keep voting. So vote. And let me give you one more fun fact about voting turnout. Did you know that 91% of Australians vote compared to only 55% of Americans? Now, that is also because voting is actually mandatory in Australia. And if you don't vote, there is a penalty. But knowing that, I do wonder, why is mandatory voting not part of every modern democratic nation? That is a very loaded question, and we can't get into it today, but it's a possible good discussion for guilty pleasure on another day.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But it should give us all pause, and we should ask, why would we not have everyone eligible participate in the democratic process? Who is really benefiting from these low voter turnouts? What would really happen if everyone eligible voted? And there are some obvious implications for that. So if everyone voted, Washington policies would likely cater to the needs of the majority and less likely cater to a particular base. Candidates would probably pander less to wealthy donors if they knew that people from all levels of economic status plan to cast their vote. And really speaking, higher voter turnout would be the single most important thing that would counteract against lobbyists, money in politics, and the so-called swamp. So,
Swamp. The real swamp.
yes, so vote,
The swamp.
because really your vote matters, okay? And elections have consequences. but by voting, we can influence the consequence instead of just being a spectator with no game.
Exactly.
And with that, I rest my case, and I hope you enjoyed being part of our discussion today.
Thank you. So
And
much.
hope you vote, everyone.
Yes.
Get out there.
I already did.
Yeah.
I don't have my ballot. Well, that's a good question, actually.
Actually, I want to ask that.
What do we do if we are not receiving our ballots? I actually am a little nervous because our Tuki Rupanjana has received a ballot and I have not.
I have received.
I went and checked like all my credentials are right. I am registered. I am in the, everything is there. I'm in the mail-in voting ballot section. So
Got
what's,
that I have applied for my ballot and they have received it, but I have not received my ballot.
I have also not received it. Yeah.
And I would say it probably will come on Tuesday because Monday's a holiday. So
Yes, I didn't know
Columbus
that.
Day.
yes,
Okay.
Columbus Day, it's still on the books here. So yes, if it doesn't come Tuesday, I would go to the Maricopa County Recorder's website and there's a phone number there that you can call. So that's what I would recommend if you don't receive it by Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. That helps.
I have one question. We can edit this out. Sorry.
No,
President
go
Pawlik.
ask.
So yeah. So before we were discussing, is SB 1523 Jake's Law? Is it up in January? Do we get to vote on it? Has it been passed or has it just been signed?
It did pass. So once the governor signs it, it becomes law 90 days later. So it's law now.
All right. So would that help? Is that kicking in already for students? Okay. All right.
Yes. And I realized after we finished speaking that I didn't address that part of your question. And I thought, oh my goodness, that was the most important part.
I literally found out about it like yesterday, last night when I was just researching. I'm like, okay, well, this is good. This is good news. We're moving in the right direction.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Preeti, you had a question. Preeti, you had a very interesting question about your daughter.
My daughter is a student. She's a senior in Case Western. And she, with all her privilege, transferred her voting to Ohio. But then she wanted to transfer it back to Arizona, being the flip state. She wanted it to be counted here. And in the process, it said her, when she checked the registrar's website, it said it got canceled. So I was curious what would have made that, but I was also looking forward for this week so I could talk to someone, and I thought if you had some experts on that.
My guess is that her registration was canceled because she registered in another state. And by canceling the first registration, she would not be allowed to vote in 2 states, which is what we want to happen.
Right.
And now they moved the date to register by. So if she still needs to register, she may register through the 23rd of October.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I hope she's done that, but she, just looking at the word cancellation, she panicked. So I will let her know that. Yeah.
It's understandable.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we should let you go and have.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It has been such an honor to have such an intelligent conversation with so many women. Really, this has been my pleasure.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so informative and also an inspiration. You're an inspiration.
You are.
Because you do what you do, you were passionate, and then since you were passionate about it, acquired the experience, and then you're transferring that to public service. Well, thank you.
Now, may I give you one more thing you might want to do?
Yes.
It doesn't matter what your party is, if you're Republican or Democrat, but all of us live within a voting precinct. And if you are a Democrat or Republican, because the independents don't do this, you can become a precinct committee person. And then you're the voice for your neighborhood. And you can reach out and tell people about deadlines, about when they need to register to vote, when they need to turn their ballots in. It's the lowest level of elected office in Arizona. So if you're interested, Rupajana, will you let them know
I
what
will
my
do that.
contact information is, and we can get you in touch with whoever it is so that you can serve at that level. It's not hard, and it's just one more thing that you can do to encourage your community to vote.
Good.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yes.
both my kids are on the calling bank where they do, but I learned apparently many out-of-state people are coming into Arizona to let the community know of these deadlines, and I was really amazed at their dedication and the time, and I would heartily want to thank them for their time.
That's
Because
awesome.
it's a flip
Absolutely.
state. It's a flip
It
state.
is.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is a flip
And
state
I
this time.
hope it goes blue. I have a bias, so.
We are